and also an interesting journey of sharing experiences with those who've walked this path before us. We're really excited. We are honored to have so many of our guest speakers, so many people who've done this before, who have been through the process, and we get to learn from their successes, from their failures, and most importantly, avoid the mistakes that they made when they started this journey. This morning, we're kicking off our sessions with Dr. Godson Gacha, who is going to share his experiences through the lot of work that he has done. That session is chaired by Dr. Katie Bryant from our Writing Center. That session will run from 9 until 11. So it's two sessions combined into one. You will remember the first part of that session was supposed to happen on Monday, on the first day of our International Week, but we postponed it to today. So at 10 o'clock, we'll have a comfort break for 5 minutes and continue with the second part of that session. Over to you, Dr. Bryant, and thank you so much, colleagues, for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Azwi, for the introduction. And I just want to thank, before we start, everyone who's participated in these sessions, Mrs. Mkize for organizing such a wonderful week, such an interesting week thus far, and the Marcom's team, they've done an incredible job. We're sitting in the space with them right now, and they're working so hard to make sure this all functions so smoothly. We've had very distinguished guests who have authored us such interesting insights and about the process of building internationalization at MUT. So we look forward today to hear one of my, not only colleagues, but I would call him a dear friend from Botswana, Dr. Gacha, who will talk today about a variety of things. But I think most particularly, he brings to us a partnership that he has worked on for, he just told me, 21 years actually with Commonwealth Online. The COL, as you can see, with my Canadian counterparts, I guess. And I just want to read a little bit of a bio about Godson so you can have some insights into who will be speaking today. So Dr. Godson Gacha is currently the Deputy Vice Chancellor at Botswana Open University, and he's Deputy Vice Chancellor of Student Services. He's also a research fellow at open distance learning at the Research Institute in the College of Education at the University of South Africa. He holds a PhD in Education Policy Studies from the University of Pretoria, and he has an array of other accolades in terms of diplomas and degrees, obviously to his name. I think what's really important today is to understand that Dr. Gacha has worked for 37 years. Both in conventional and particularly what's so important to us today, open and distance learning environments in an array of educational contexts. So from secondary schools, he's been an ODL practitioner, an online and distance learning regional manager, SADC CDE director, ODL technical advisor in Malawi, educational specialist in higher education in the Commonwealth of Learning, which is stationed in Vancouver, Canada. And he spent a long time living in Canada, actually. And why I get the opportunity to introduce Dr. Gacha today is because we have had a partnership since 2018 through Michigan State University, which offered us some preliminary research funding to build a partnership through Michigan State University's Writing Center, Botswana Open University, which is seeking to build a writing center, MUT, and my home institution in Canada, Carleton University. And from there, I guess we could say that I became an effort of internationalization efforts at MUT to start opening the Writing Center at the university. I think what we want to think about today, I think we've heard an array of things about internationalization and building collaborations, is to think about how do we build sustainable long-term collaborations internationally. And I'm sure Dr. Getcha will focus on this today. Thinking a 21-year partnership has a lot to teach us about what we need to do to build sustainable partnerships, and also partnerships that are based on symmetry, not asymmetry. And coming from a writing center, I think this is often the work that we have to do in a university context, is think about how do we build symmetrical partnerships that value everyone's ways of knowing and not just one dominant party's. So I think as we think about internationalization, these are things we also need to think about. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to my colleague and friend, Godson, Dr. Getcha, to hear about his intriguing insights I'm sure that he will share with us.
Good morning again. Sorry about that technological hiccup. Can you hear me? Oh, great. First, colleagues, I would like to thank the MUT executive management, senior management, and the marketing team for the kind hospitality they have extended to me. It is indeed a great pleasure to be here at Mangosuthu University of Technology to share experiences about building capacity, particularly in higher education institutions. I've had the privilege to work as an education specialist for Commonwealth of Learning. And before that, as indicated by Kathy, I was involved in open and distance learning for many years in Botswana, in Malawi, and with the privilege of working for Commonwealth of Learning, I was able to facilitate capacity building in ODL systems, quality assurance, open educational resources across Africa, the Caribbean, the Pacific, and South Asia. Basically, this presentation will cover the items that are indicated on the slide in terms of CALL as an organization, so that you can actually understand what CALL Commonwealth of Learning is and how was it established and for what purposes. And very, very important is to share with you insights into open educational resources. This is part of the open access and open educational movement that has actually been very helpful, particularly its uptake after COVID-19. Of interest to MUT are the Commonwealth Executive MBA and MPA, which I suppose will be very attractive to MUT. And the virtual university of the small states of the Commonwealth that was established by Commonwealth of Learning, it's another area that MUT will actually appreciate once we delve into what it is and what are the benefits that MUT can derive from the virtual university of the small states of the Commonwealth. And lastly, in this session, we'll briefly look at the TVET initiative as conceptualized by Commonwealth of Learning. So basically, the yellow parts that you see in that global map represent the Commonwealth member states. Altogether, there are 54 member states. And these are the member states that came together in Vancouver in 1987 and established or formed the Commonwealth of Learning. Most of you will be aware that Commonwealth member states are managed by Commonwealth Secretariat in UK. And CALL, or Commonwealth of Learning, is actually an intergovernmental organization that is under the Commonwealth Secretariat. Commonwealth Secretariat is the parent organization for Commonwealth Learning. The Commonwealth of Learning is actually hosted by the Canadian government in Vancouver, in Burnaby. Why? The question is, why Commonwealth of Learning and why in Vancouver? Those are the heads of state that met in 1987 in Vancouver and looked at the area of education with a focus on higher education and ask themselves how to go about expanding access to higher education during that time in 1987. Most Commonwealth member states, with the exception of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, had serious challenges when it came to access to higher education. So one approach that was mooted in that meeting was open and distance learning and technologies that had actually demonstrated that they could facilitate the expansion of the expansion and access to higher education. And the question of why is it hosted by Canada? The Canadian government at the time volunteered to actually host Commonwealth of Learning, and besides offering the premises, at the time the Canadian government was one of the largest donors in terms of expanding education, higher education, using Commonwealth of Learning. So it was basically established with the statement that I've shown there to help Commonwealth governments and institutions to use various technologies to improve and expand education, training, and learning as part of supporting, by then, the Millennium Development Goals, currently as part of supporting the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The major donors include, as I have indicated, Canada, New Zealand, UK, Australia, South Africa, India, and Nigeria. However, all the other 54 countries are basically making a contribution. Most of them, yes, they make small contributions, $5,000 US, depending on the economy, on the performance of the economy. But whether big or small, each donation made to Commonwealth of Learning matters. I will come into the particularly focus on South Africa, probably so that I don't forget. South Africa, basically, at the time I was at Commonwealth of Learning, was actually making a contribution of close to $300,000 US. However, most of the organizations in South Africa for years have never taken advantage of the money that they give or they donate to Commonwealth of Learning. It's only SAIDI, South African Institute of Distance Education, that has actually benefited from Commonwealth of Learning, basically because they provide capacity building in distance education. The University of South Africa of late has, to some extent, and obviously there are other parties that have come on board also, University of Cape Town, University of Pretoria, and so forth. But these big universities, they have adequate resources. They come into Cole's work by providing expertise. For instance, we at Cole, there is a database of expertise, and part of those expertise come from University of South Africa, Cape Town, Free State, and so forth. So they are basically not utilizing the money, but they are assisting. In addition to the money donated by the South African government, the South African universities provide skills whenever contracted by Commonwealth of Learning. That is the CEO and president of Commonwealth of Learning, a former deputy vice chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, a graduate from University of Sussex, UK, a feminist, who, if you make a proposal and showcase how MOUT is actually going to support girls and women, that proposal will definitely win. We'll talk about that later. So, as I indicated, I mean, after the Millennium Goals, after the MDGs, Commonwealth of Learning, including its vision, focuses on learning for sustainable development. It actually focuses on all those goals, 17 of them, but with particular reference to goal number 4 of quality, equitable education. So, in other words, whatever priorities countries provide call or institutions, call will be interested particularly in building capacity towards any of those goals. Call is a small, we were about 42, and even now I think we are, they are less than 42, 35 or so. But it's a lean organization. The expertise that Call enjoys are with universities in UK, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Canada, and elsewhere in Africa. So Call's approach to partnerships and international development is basically focused, results-oriented, and hence we say it wants to see in-country and institutional outputs being translated into outcomes. It builds capacity, capability in terms from capacity, making sure resources are available that come through donations, human resources from universities are available to build the capacity and capability of institutions and their respective human resources. Its approach, again, is based on facilitating the development of models that can be replicable, so that if a model is developed in Kenya, that model should be able to find its way of being replicated in Samoa, in Guyana, or in Cameroon. So the expertise that support Call or are contracted, for example, like the Call chairs, are basically meant to come up with models, technologies, and innovations that can actually be that are transferable to different or similar contexts. When they are transferable to different contexts, they should allow for the modification so that they can actually fit into that context. The other key success for Call is basically partnership, networking, collaboration, and partnership. It's a key strategy that Commonwealth of Learning uses. I've already indicated that expertise comes from universities and so forth. We will be sharing on the VASC. This is the Virtual University of Small States of the Commonwealth. That is a partnership of 32 countries from the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, and the Pacific. And Call also focuses on human capital development, particularly for higher education or tertiary education, all the way from middle managers to vice chancellors in terms of leadership, for transformative leadership for open and distance learning, including online learning, online pedagogies, and so forth. So Commonwealth of Learning works in the Africa region, the Mediterranean, South Asia, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. So it's basically spread in those Commonwealth member states. In each region, there are focal points. So these focal points are basically nominated by ministers of higher education or of education and training. They are focal points in the sense that COL uses them to collect annually the priorities of their national governments, the priorities of the institutions, whether universities or faith-based organizations and or non-governmental organizations that are involved in higher education and in what we call open schooling, that is utilization of open and distance learning at secondary school level. So South Africa, I think Trudy from the Department of Higher Education has been a focal person for some time. Basically, COL's work in South Africa is primarily in the areas of higher education, teacher education, and technology-enabled learning. When I was at COL, I did have a number of students that we sponsored at a master's level for instructional design and technology at the Open University of Malaysia. It was a joint partnership between the Open University of Malaysia and Commonwealth of Learning. So we did not, as COL, we did not pay the full fees. We met halfway with the Open University of Malaysia. It specializes in technology big time. And some of the students, obviously, they were working for the Department of Higher Education at Port Elizabeth in Gauteng. And I also had some students who enrolled, who were working for Umlambo Foundation under the former Deputy President, Phumzile Mlambo. Recently, as a result of COVID, COL has made a number of programs, short learning programs, micro learning available to students and learners from South Africa. And these online resources are still available. If you Google Commonwealth of Learning, you will actually find some of these online courses, including digital literacies, which actually build the capacity of staff and students under COVID to actually get the competencies to navigate the platforms used by the universities during this difficult time. Basically, as I have indicated, the partners from South Africa include the Department of Higher Education, SchoolNet South Africa, University of Cape Town, Fort Hare, University of Pretoria, and UNISA. This is where the expertise also reside, except where if the expertise, for example, are not available in South Africa, Indira Gandhi National Open University provides the Malaysian Open Universities, including Wawasan, a private university, Athabasca in UK, in Canada, Open University UK, Hong Kong University, Australia, and New Zealand also provide support in terms of expertise. In the event, for instance, the expertise is sourced, for instance, from New Zealand or UK or Athabasca or Australia, what Cole does, negotiates with the expert and then flies the expert from wherever to actually facilitate capacity building for staff. For instance, if you would like to have capacity building in the development of open educational resources, there are plenty of experts here in South Africa. For instance, Neil Butcher from Neil Butcher and Associates, Saidi, South Africa Institute of Distance Education, there's expertise there, or even Wayne McIntosh from the OER University in New Zealand can actually come here. It's his home country. He has facilitated in Kenya, in Uganda, in UK. He's a South African who is now, I think, he has dual citizenship with New Zealand. So the expertise is plenty that Cole actually uses. For example, I mean, recently I finished the program accreditation for Council of Higher Education in Lesotho. I did it virtually. Same applies. I did the institutional ODL policy for Mzuzu University, Malawi, during COVID virtually. And all the, I mean, when I came here, the Vice Chancellor was saying the policy went through, approved by the council. That is for Mzuzu University. Yesterday, the Director for Quality Assurance indicated that the accreditation standards for ODL have been approved by the Council for Lesotho Council of Higher Education and so forth. So, like I've indicated, there's plenty of expertise in terms of learning and technology, technology-enabled learning. There is collaboration between South, whereby they can actually take somebody from South Africa to help in Lesotho or to help in Tanzania. And in some instances, there is North-South collaboration, obviously, when they actually get Athabasca Open University UK to actually facilitate capacity building in the university. For example, Professor Alan Tad, Professor Emeritus of the Open University of UK, I contracted him for over 3 years to work the Botswana Open University, because before it became an open university, it was a Botswana College of Distance and Open Learning. So they needed to be helped in the transition from a college to an open university. So I had actually contracted Professor Alan Tate from the Open University of UK. He was the Deputy Vice Chancellor. And simply because, again, he taught in Swaneng Secondary School in Sirowe when some years back. So he knew the context of Botswana very well. And this is why we preferred him. I had to justify why I am preferring Professor Alan Tate. He's a guru in open and distance learning, student support services, and online learning. So, yeah, we basically, as indicated, work on transferable models and so forth. So, briefly, this is what Commonwealth of Learning work entails. There are two key initiatives. That is education. And under education, there is open schooling. Open schooling, as I have indicated, is a philosophy that actually removes the barriers to access basic education, as advocated by UNESCO. So, in other words, all out of school youth and adults in Botswana and Namibia are actually attending if they missed their secondary school, they attended the Botswana Open University as part of a public good, public service that the Botswana Open University is actually doing. And in Namibia, they are basically using the Namibian College of Open Learning, which is also on the verge of transforming to become the Namibian Open University. And there are a number of open schoolings, even in the Caribbean and elsewhere in West Africa, but they are not really successful. So far, the successful open schools, open learning has been in Botswana and Namibia, because since 2000, the Commonwealth of Learning has actually built capacity and capability of reaching the unreached at secondary school level and inmates, and all those in difficult circumstances in geographically remote contexts through the models that we're talking about. So if you read about, for example, the Department of Higher Education of South Africa, when they are talking about open and distance learning, there is a mention of these two models, NAMCOL and BOCODOL, as models of extending access to secondary education using the philosophy of open schooling. And at one stage, when I was the regional manager for Kang, the oldest person was actually 79 years, who was doing a junior secondary certificate. And I did register a lot of success in open schooling. Some of you will recall that the government actually relocated the SAN, the Bushmen, from the CKGR to New Kadi. And when I was the regional managers, quite a number of the SAN students who had missed education, because in conventional schools, there is age restriction. So we had to go out to settlements to address Kutla meetings, you know, the village assembly, using the chiefs in order to mobilize students to actually join Botswana College of Distance and Open Learning. And some of the success stories you would not believe. I mean, there are 3 who proceeded to the University of Botswana and are now engineers. And one other one who also proceeded to the University of Botswana after going through open schooling. You will be surprised. He is the first secretary to the Botswana High Commission in UK. He is from CKGR. So those are some of the role models that Botswana Open University uses to demystify the online distance learning methodologies, so that there is public acceptance. And there are quite a number of stories that I can tell regarding open schooling. In terms of teacher education, I mean, COL has actually facilitated the teacher capacity building jointly with UNICEF. COL has supported Botswana Open University in developing the integrated early childhood diplomas. Now there is a Bachelor of Integrated Early Childhood degree, and colleagues are now working on a master's program. In terms of higher education, like I've indicated, one very good example is when COL facilitated BOCODOL or Botswana Botswana College of Distance Learning to transform into a fully fledged university. The consultant helped to build the university structures, the statutes, and all the necessary documents, which we then subjected to the former Vice Chancellor of the University of Botswana, Professor Bujosi, who is a legal expert, to quality assure the document so that we could actually get registered and accredited by the Botswana Qualifications Authority. As we speak, we have over 39 programs, and all systems are going. And because the council, I had to insist that we can't have a council without ODL experts. And the choices that they said I should provide, the choices I provided, actually 3 choices from Namibia, South Africa, and Zambia, Professor Richard Siachwena and Professor Mpine Makwe from UNISA. She is the council member with expertise in open and distance learning. So when council deliberations are actually being contested in the issue of practices, she's the person who has the expertise to bring them to order to make sure that things happen. The virtual university of the small states, that is vast, as I have indicated, it was specially established for the small islands of the Commonwealth. And these small islands of the Commonwealth, there are 32, including Seychelles, Mauritius, Trinidad and Tobago, and the 9 others in the Pacific. So these small islands did not have the capacity to build resilient higher education systems and basic education systems. So we're basically supporting them. For example, whilst I was at Cole, I had to get Neil Butcher from South Africa to go and build the basic education systems for radio lessons in Trinidad and Tobago and so forth, being supported by Mindset, South Africa. So in terms of skills of work, this is where MUT falls. It also includes TVET. Cole has been working with a number of colleges that are focusing on TVET and universities of technology in Kenya and Ghana and elsewhere in the Caribbean. So, but otherwise, this is another area where MOUT can actually get support from Cole, because Cole also works with communities. So by extension, MOUT, I mean, I watched students giving their testimonies about entrepreneurship and so forth. The students of MOUT can actually take advantage of building capacity in bricklaying and carpentry and all those other skills that are required in the informal sector, so that the informal sector can actually be active to participate in the economy. And I mean, one Pakistan was saying, look, the economy of the future belongs to TVET. And I tend to subscribe to that. Lifelong learning for farmers, this is a model that has been used by Cole, I mean, in Uganda, in Ghana, in Kenya, and in India. And it has actually raised the quality of life in those countries, such that farmers are able to use mobile technology as a result of Cole's intervention to actually improve their lives. I mean, quite a number now lead decent, sustainable livelihoods. Girls Inspire, this is another project that focuses on girls and women in the Commonwealth, trying to uplift them so that they participate at all levels of education. And this is an area which the president of Cole is actually excited about. Then the cross-cutting things regarding Cole's work, it's gender mainstreaming. I'll briefly talk about it. and the technology-enabled learning, which is an initiative that cuts across. We leverage technology to make great things. And basically, how does CALL work? It works in the areas of co-creation of models, building policies, be it e-learning policies, be it ODL policies, be it policies in terms of online assessment and so forth, and building capacity in the form of human resource so that they have the capability to make things happen. And obviously developing materials. I mean, I've already mentioned open educational resources or print-based materials, because you find that in a context like KZN, the fiber optic may not be running all over. So there are deeply remote areas that still need old technology like self-learning materials actually being delivered there. This is why a mega university like the University of South Africa runs 2 parallel materials, online learning materials, and still provides the print-based material, because these are the materials that are able to get into prisons, into correctional services, and into very remote areas. Then the biggest of all of them, to make all these happen, it's partnership. Partnership, partnership, partnership. Without partners, CALL cannot actually make its work impactful in member states. Some years back in 2002, there were only 22 member states that were making voluntary contributions. And by the time I left CALL, out of 54, there were 47 member states that were making contributions, because they realized the kind of work that CALL was doing in other countries. And CALL reports to education ministers in their common, that is the ministries of education training. They meet, every 2 years, and the CALL president actually presents progress report as required by Commonwealth Secretariat. So in other words, basically we're saying for capacity building, CALL has the capacity to help MUT transition from face-to-face teaching to ICT supported face-to-face teaching to blended learning, and where programs do not require face-to-face to fully online learning. But at the moment now, there is ongoing work in terms of augmented reality and virtual reality to ensure that even those who may not come to MUT because of geographical location or far away somewhere else in the Northern Cape, through augmented reality and virtual realities, they can actually use those kind of simulations to actually learn. So basically, Commonwealth of Learning supports educational transformation through the use of ICT, and of late through the use of open educational resources in terms of access, quality, and new pedagogies. So MUT, when they raise a proposal, they should actually look into their strategic plan and identify priority areas where they can partner with Commonwealth of Learning. You may not be able to identify expertise elsewhere, but in the Commonwealth of Learning database, there are quite a number of experts that they can quickly actually identify negotiate and contract to actually come and support you. And call will basically pay for the flights, pay for the consultancy fees, and pay for accommodation and feeding. That is if a university's profile and the people it serves is like MUT. But for UNISA, University of Cape Town, Cole will say, let's go halfway. I'll fly the expert, but take care of the accommodation and so forth, because those are well-resourced universities. For instance, like with us, because of the public perception of open and distance learning, you in Botswana and the communities that I was reaching out, the same. So the call came full force, because when they report about how they are dealing with SDG 1, breaking poverty, then that excites our government, not only the Botswana government, but all member states. So let me go quickly to open and distance, open educational resources. Probably it's 10. Can we take a 5 minutes break? Yeah, probably let me pause so that I don't mix. Yeah, I mean, what I was talking about, Cole's work and so forth, with the substantive issue, open educational resources. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's your
Colleagues, so we'll take a 5-minute break and comfort break, and then we'll return and Dr. Getcha will talk further about open educational resources, etc. Okay, so 5 minutes and then we will be back. So that will be at about 5 minutes, 6 minutes past 10. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Let's proceed. I will actually be focusing now on open educational resources, and I'll try to move as quickly as possible because there is another part that we still need to move to. So the question is, for some of you could be, what are open educational resources? So when I prepared this, I didn't have the insight to or privy to know the profile of the audience. But basically, these are materials that are free and freely available, suitable for all levels of education, whether be it higher education, teacher education, preschool. These materials are reusable and are available digitally. Most of, the open educational resources that are made freely available because they are developed using public funding. So anything in the academia that is actually developed using public funding must actually be made available freely. And this is why even in the journal publication, this movement of open access has actually permeated, and the big publishers realizing the doom that is so close, they've jumped the ship and joined us in the open access movement. And this is why you find that there are a number of open access journals that make their work freely available without any embargoes and so forth. But there are other journals that are open access, but you need to pay something. So Commonwealth of Learning puts together experts to actually develop these materials. The open education resources movement was strengthened by the 2012 Paris Declaration organized by COL and UNESCO, calling on all the governments to support the development of open educational resources, open textbooks, so that the cost of education could actually be brought down. So a number of member states are now focusing on the development of open educational resources, and the University of Cape Town has actually been in the forefront in terms of building capacity in open educational resources. In Southern Africa. So the Paris Declaration on OER, made huge awareness and encouraged the development and adaptation of open educational resources. There is a history to this, and you would need really to go even to Wikipedia if you do not know the history to appreciate how open educational resources developed, including the open licensing of materials produced with public funds. So what does COL do? Basically, it advocates for open educational resources. It helps nations and institutions build OER policies. For example, the Nigerian government, there is a national OER policy, and I still remember now the Nigerian Open University by 2016 had over 750 open educational resources being available. And there is a TVET institution in Nigeria that has several courses actually available for adaptation by any other TVET organization. Call also, as I have indicated, build human capacity in terms of co-creation of OER, and does a lot of publications. For example, those are some of the publications in terms of guides so that people can actually appreciate. And the far right one actually showcases the OER Asian perspective. These books are freely available on Call website. You can basically download them. They are available. And Call has actually taken responsibility in the curation of open educational resources. So if you go into the Call website, DUA, you'll actually find vast materials that are donated by worldwide experts for open access and open educational resources. So the key trends at the moment is that more countries are developing, have joined OER and are developing materials. I mean, for instance, I facilitated the OER in Sri Lanka, and my boss came also in Sri Lanka Open University. And the trend is now in those countries and institutions where they are policies, they are now moving from policy to practice. And there's a lot of open educational resources, boot camps, online, literally everywhere. And the open textbook, I think this is what in South Africa, it's also known. I think at one time, I mean, the government put in 4 million rands or so in the development of open textbook after the disaster in Limpopo. Was it Limpopo Education Department for secondary schools and so forth? They were serious. And Call also encourages the development of OER in indigenous languages, in our own languages. So that, I mean, there should be, like in KZN, there should be OER materials for secondary schools, for instance, for higher education, for instance, where Zulu is actually being used. And if we don't do that, no one is actually going to do. There's no one who will come from America or UK or Australia to actually develop open educational resources in our own indigenous languages. So that is a challenge that we should actually take. In Spain, there's Spanish. In France, there are plenty of resources available in their own languages. So this is a challenge that we should actually be doing also in Africa. In terms of MOOCs, this is another area where we are lagging. For example, all the Call MOOCs are being facilitated by Athabasca University. Yet we have the African Virtual University in Nairobi. Yet we have big universities in South Africa here. Because most of the MOOCs are run by top universities like MIT in the US, Stanford, and so forth. I was sharing the other day that one time this Porter, the economics guru, ran a short course for 2 weeks, and within a day, over 1 million had subscribed for that MOOC. So this is an area which is now being powered by big conventional or contact universities. And recently I saw Free State also running a MOOC with support from Call and so forth. So UNISA, besides University of Cape Town, UNISA also is engaged in the development of open educational resources. I mean, this started long back, I think, when Prof. Mandla Makaya was the Vice Chancellor. He was one of the forefront in driving the International Conference on Distance Education, the African Council on Distance Education, and hence UNISA actually became a center for OER development, just like University of Cape Town. In Canada, I mean, there is Ontario, there is British Columbia and Saskatchewan. They actually came together in an MOU, and they collaborate in the development of open educational resources for all levels in Canada, literally for all levels. BC Campus just focuses, was established to engage communities of practice and to develop OER. Similarly, Ontario, if you Google those, you'll find the kind of great work that this establishment are actually doing. In Botswana, I developed a concept net for open educational resources, and that has actually been a discussion document, and Botswana Open University is likely to be a national center for the development of open educational resources. It's only that the bureaucracy takes long because we need funding from government so that we can develop materials. But we started the development of open educational resources for our open schooling long back in 2004. With the collaboration with Trinidad and Tobago and other Caribbean open schools and Namibia, Lesotho, we developed 22 different subjects for both JC and B, for Botswana junior certificate level and for Botswana senior certificate level, which we call BGCSE, Botswana General Certificate of Secondary Education. And in most of our programs, also at tertiary level, are basically part open educational resource, adapting, creating courses out of OER and getting them quality assured by colleagues in South Africa, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, before presenting the program to Botswana Qualifications Authority. So basically, the lessons from the textbook Zero Cost actually demonstrate a systemic change is actually required on the part of authorities, on the part of captains of industry to support the development of open educational resources. And like quality assurance, open educational resources can only succeed provided there is a senior champion in the university. The vice chancellor should actually take a huge interest in the university participating in the creation of open educational resources so that we do not only consume what is produced in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, UK, and elsewhere, or by UNISA or Cape Town, but we should also participate and be part of a sharing community and ownership. So, for example, I mean, there is collaboration between UNESCO and CORE. And both these intergovernmental organizations facilitate research in the area of technology-enabled learning, online learning, open and distance learning, and in research and publication in these emerging technologies. And during COVID, I mean, CORE developed guidelines on how to transition from contact to emergency remote learning and so forth. And I still remember we did work a policy brief also for the SADC region with Professor Mpine for that kind of transition before actually CORE produced the bigger one. So like at the Ontario Polytechnic, which is now a university. This is where Professor Wayne McIntosh, Open Educational Resources University reside. It's a virtual university. What they are basically doing, they are busy collecting programs from other universities, getting the license, changing the license in terms of copyrights to the open license regime so that the programs can be available to students. So what is emerging now is that students can actually take courses or modules that are part of the open educational resources, get a private tutor, read, and then get one of the participating university for assessment. That actually entails reducing the cost of education to the learner. It enables even learners who are not from affluent families to be able to get that degree. For example, in 2017, the first graduates of students who participated in that program graduated in 2017. So UNISA is one of the universities that subscribes. Botswana Open University, we paid $4,000 to be part of the members of the Open Educational Resources Partnership University. Athabasca Open University UK, and MIT, I think it's part of them. And MIT is the largest donor of most of the programs that you can actually use. I mean, I still remember I was working on an MBA for women entrepreneurship with Commonwealth Secretariat, and by the time we needed 32 modules to have a complete MBA, because out there women were crying that, look, we don't want to be academics. We can't do this research project that is expected. We would rather do a winning business plan so that we can go to a funding body, get the money, go to the bank, get the money, and run our business. So most of the modules came from Canada, came from MIT and other universities. So some of these universities, they actually have the call chair who are experts in open and distance learning and experts in open educational resources. For example, Professor Mpine Makwe at the University of South Africa, I mean, he's a distinguished researcher with the National Research Foundation, a graduate of Open University UK in educational technology, and has taken keen interest in open access and open educational resources, and she's the Commonwealth of Learning Chair in open distance learning and in open educational resources. And UNISA has literally relieved him of her teaching duties to focus on the development of technologies in ODL and in open educational resources, including the emerging area of virtual reality and augmented reality. So these are some of the call chairs. Sorry, the other gentleman where there is the arrow is late now. He was the Vice Chancellor of the Open University of Tanzania. He did great work. The next is for Ontario Polytechnic. The next is for National Open University of Nigeria, but because of politics, he has been moved. And the ladies from Malta, you know, COL has a very good link also with EU because of the Mediterranean Commonwealth states. Warakan, the next University of the West Indies, and Rory is the Professor Emeritus from Athabasca. He now lives in Alberta, but he's still active. And when I was running a big OER event in Botswana. He flew in with the lady, that's Professor Pine of the University of South Africa. I had invited them, and unfortunately, they had arrived in the country. And on the day the event was supposed to take place, COVID struck, and the government issued directives. Everybody was in a panic mood. They couldn't even step into the university the driver went to pick them, and then all of a sudden we're phoning, yo, leave those people there. And Professor Mpine managed to catch a flight very quickly. It was easy to change a ticket. Prof Rory, it was extremely difficult. He was here to go to Alberta, Canada, and airlines were being actually cancelled. It was really, really. I stayed with him, took him to my farm, because it's not very far from Gaborone, but eventually the Canadian government found a way to actually get him to UK. There was a special plane that was taking the Canadians back, and he was able to get home. So in South Africa, basically, these are some of the key champions for open educational resources in South Africa. They are not the only ones, but these are the ones that work with Commonwealth of Learning. That's Professor Mpine Makwe, and that's Jenny Glennie. These are personalities that are known in the academia, particularly in higher education. We have other colleagues in South Africa who are not working directly with COL, but they are experts. Like I indicated, Neil Butcher. Neil Butcher has been in the forefront of ODL capacity building in the SADC region. We engaged him to write a winning proposal to the African Development Bank, and through Neil Butcher, a South African, we got $25 million to build capacity in the 16 SADC member states in terms of training colleagues to be professionals in diploma in distance education, masters in distance education with the Open University of Tanzania. Before that, we had Rajiv Gandhi Scholarship, which we trained colleagues postgraduate level for distance education, and also a master's in distance education with Indira Gandhi National Open University. So these are the champions for COL in South Africa. So again, there is a publication by COL, which basically, it provides a channel for dissemination of research findings that relate to technology-enabled learning and technologies that are meant to expand and facilitate higher education pedagogies and so forth. So what we need to do, we need to be part of the OER movement. We need to be champions of OER. We need to collaborate so that we avoid duplication of effort, and to encourage learners to be producers rather than consumers of content. Neil Butcher has actually produced a book on how students can participate in the co-creation and production of open educational resources. And this one is very interesting. The Commonwealth Executive Master of Business Administration and Master of Public Administration. This program is licensed by COL to only one university per country. At the moment, there is no university offering the SIMBA, the MBA, MPA in South Africa. So this is an opportunity for MUT to contact call. I'll give you the address later. Contact the CEO of call and indicate their interest in this program. This program is actually meant to be accessible to those members of society who cannot afford Wits University, KZN, MBA, Gordon's Institute of, for University of Pretoria and so forth. So there are currently 13 universities from the Commonwealth who are licensed to offer this. Wawasan in Malaysia, Bangladesh Open University, Botswana Open University of Mauritius, Seychelles University, the Open University in Pakistan, Cayman Islands College of Public Service, the Jamaican College, University of Guyana, Kwame Nkrumah University of Technology in Ghana, and most of these I've been privileged to actually visit them, and I was the executive secretary for the deans for these programs and for the vice chancellors from the 13 universities. It's a beautiful program. The curriculum exactly the same like any other curriculum that is available in our universities. Athabasca, UNISA, Hong Kong, Australian universities, and UK universities, Indian University, Indira Gandhi participated in the development of the curriculum, the courses, and so forth. Universities in Australia have also Melbourne and Monash. They've also donated, for instance, the Master of Educational Leadership program, quality assurance, both diploma and masters. And other universities in UK have donated the youth program and so forth. There are quite a number of programs that are available that MUT can actually expand their menu. What you do, you get the program and then look at what the Council of Higher Education in South Africa require and look at the content, contextualize the content to talk to the laws of South Africa, to the tax regime in South Africa, and to the economic needs of the industry and of what the students actually need, and then get it accredited. So it is the responsibility of the university, instead of reinventing, starting from scratch, they get this program, the curriculum, they get the materials through the licensing, such that MUT can offer this program all over South Africa. What MUT can actually do is to open a center in Northern Cape, in Northwest, in Mpumalanga, in Limpopo, in Western Cape. You don't need to build a structure. What you do, you just need to enter into a shared use of a facility with any faith-based organization or another institution, a technical college or a secondary school, so that the adjunct professor who takes care of your students there can actually have a bona fide place where students can actually meet. So you really don't need physical buildings everywhere, because physical buildings are already there. You just need to negotiate and have a shared use of facilities. Botswana Open University, we have 5 regional campuses, and we have never, except for Maung, the rest are basically shared use of facilities. Even Maung, we are sharing it. We built it. Some time back, the headquarters, we built the headquarters through the British International, what do you call them? DFID. Yeah. So when we were opening the facilities, the Princess Anne what flew to plant a tree. So we're a former British colony. So that is the curriculum. You can't see it, but there are exit levels. When they were planning, there were exit levels. So it all depends whether the Council of Higher Education allows students to actually exit after fulfilling the diploma stage and so forth. Because guided by the principles of ODL, it had to be flexible. So basically, the history of Simba. I'll leave the slides. This was the main reason was that the existing MBAs and MPAs were not affordable to people with no funds, to the poor. But this one, it's amazing. Botswana Accountants College, the executive MBA, same curriculum. Students are paying 148,000. Well, those are sponsored by government. But working mothers and fathers who have to take care of 5 or so children, they have no luxury to actually pay 148,000. So MUT has a niche market there of workers who can't actually stop working and go and sit in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal University or Pretoria. But this program, if the VC negotiates well, the license will go down. For example, in Botswana, all along, it was 30,000, the whole course, 2 years. And even now, it's only 34,000 pula, which is about 39,000 rands. You can't get that program or a diploma in South Africa for that amount. The postgraduate diploma in research management that we did, and then we allowed Stellenbosch to offer, I mean, it's 52,000, and it's a 12-month postgraduate diploma. So this program is something that MUT should consider as a priority and a niche area, because MUT needs that political mileage throughout South Africa. Whilst the focus may be internationalization, but also the political mileage should go beyond KZN. So this is one program that can actually build that kind of, that is the goal, basically. I'll jump there. Those were, I've already indicated the participating, the consortium, and then MUT will become a consortium of these participating members that actually offers, again, the international partnerships and collaboration. MUT staff and students will interact with students in Cayman Islands, in Bangladesh, in Nigeria, in Botswana, in Seychelles, and so forth. And they, again, MUT staff and students will be able to research. And most of the case studies in the MBA and MPA touch on airlines like Kulula.com. Instead of using Singapore, create a case study that is related to the context of South Africa so that they appreciate and understand what the needs of the South African economy are. So we are basically saying the degree is offered as an executive MBA for very busy people. I mean, for instance, like in Botswana, I had the Minister of Health taking it. He's a medical doctor. When he lost elections, so you are saying now he's fine. he can manage his private practice better. Yeah. So COL is not a degree granting body. Hence I was saying, you get this program, you look at it, you reconfigure it to the requirements of the Council of Higher Education. And it won't take long because everything is there. It's unfortunate that probably the CEO of the council has moved. He was a board member for COL. So then, yeah, the courses, the full course sets 22, and COL holds the copyrights. Why is COL holding the copyrights? It's simple because they want this program not to be expensive to the citizens of the Commonwealth. They want to keep it affordable. And when you make a proposal to Professor Asha Kwana, the CEO, make sure you put girls and women in the forefront. She will understand you. So if you perpetuate male chauvinism, she gets so angry. If you use the profile like it's indicated, Umlazi, historically disadvantaged, and your pitch goes to women and girls, because there are so many women here who are entrepreneurs all over South Africa. They win awards and so forth. But honestly, if MUT gets this program, you will be amazed. You won't be ready for all the women in South Africa and men. So basically the benefits of partnerships, you'll have that information. Let me go to the virtual university of the small states of the Commonwealth. This is another area that MUT should actually utilize the resources under the virtual university of the small states of the Commonwealth. Basically, as I indicated, it is a network of small countries in the Pacific, in the Indian Ocean, and in the Caribbean. They basically collaborate to develop degree programs, courses, skill-related courses, disaster management, life skills, ICT, small fisheries management. I think you are in a very good area, unless the bylaws do not allow the small men to go into the ocean to get fresh fish. So those are basically where there are circles. These are former British colonies. 32 of them who are members of VASC. Swaziland, Eswatini and Botswana and Lesotho, we begged that we wanted to be part of the VASC, and we are. My vice chancellor is actually the chairperson of the management team for the VASC. And the programs, the development takes place online or in person. There have been boot camps on the development of materials in Seychelles, in Mauritius, in Singapore, and so forth. But Singapore is not a member, but we went there because of the expertise and other lessons, models that are transferable in terms of the Singapore educational landscape and the public service initiatives then. So I think we have already indicated the members. So COL actively seeks partnership with educational institutions and development agencies in support of vast course content creation and delivery. So MUT can become part of that. I'm not going to finish. These are some of the professional learning courses that are available. Of interest to MUT should be the blue economy, sustainability, innovation, and the ocean. The blue economy, creating an enabling environment. The blue economy, blue resources. The blue economy, blue space. I think Prof was actually talking about it. Walker. So basically, these are courses that are available. And MUT can get all these courses to become part of the professional development of staff and of students. For instance, designing and developing online assessments. Most scientists are not teachers. They've not done, pedagogy. So that would be a plus. Developing and teaching online courses. That would be a plus. Assistive technologies. If MUT needs to be inclusive in terms of disabilities and so forth, basically, I think all those professional learning courses are critical for MUT's lifelong learning. And in terms of diploma and certificate level, those are there's a postgraduate diploma in education. I mean, MUT can actually take that, get it accredited, and let it be part of the orientation program for its scientists, so that they can actually have the psychology, the sociology, the philosophy, the history of teaching, the pedagogy, so that they can actually become powerful teachers. Not a situation where at the University of Botswana in the Faculty of Law, I mean, one young lecturer with a PhD, very good, and just told the entire class, 30 students, that you are going to fail my course. And indeed, 30 of them failed the course. And when they tried to bring disciplinary hearing, the chap just gave them a letter and resigned. Went to his private practice. Why? Because he has not done educational psychology. He doesn't understand the needs, the profile, the learning styles of students. He can't apply Bloom taxonomy in terms of designing assessment, in terms of teaching, and so forth. He's not even an instructional designer, so he's a lawyer. He's a lawyer. So when he has been accepted at the bar and he comes just to pass time in the School of Law, and you want to discipline him, that is the challenge. So I think all those are very critical in terms of particularly sustainable tourism, disaster management. Those are some of the courses. Then at degree level, there's educational leadership and business entrepreneurship, environmental management for sustainable development. That's a Bachelor of Science. Youth work through the Commonwealth Higher Education Consortium. There's another consortium, that BA, and quite a number of. The advantage of these programs is that you can offer them in person and offer them through distance learning. So, I mean, MUT can diversify and say, look, Prof. Kada Asmal, yes, it was the right time at the time. Now, the dictates of online distance learning, blended approaches apply. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You start with programs readily available. And when you go to Council of Higher Education with this, the Council of Higher Education, they know about Cole's program. In terms of technical and vocational skills, CALL also has these initiatives that are targeting out-of-school youth and adults in the informal sector so that they can hone appropriate skills so that they can actually become productive and entrepreneurs and make a decent living or lead decent livelihoods in the informal sector. And that is an informal sector which is booming in KZN and elsewhere. And MUT can take such programs as part of their corporate responsibility or to showcase the regulators in terms of community engagement in their own space. Rather than making donations, leave that to NGOs, but take TVET to empower out-of-school youth and adults. So this is basically the outcomes, the focus of CALL in terms of TVET institutions, TVET teachers, TVET students. And in Kenya and Uganda and Ghana, where investment in TVET by corporations in collaboration with CALL has actually increased income for the informal sector participants. And a study which was done by the vice president and the education specialists for TVET initiative indicated the impact that, I mean, what happens is CALL, when they make an intervention, they first make a baseline study. Where are you before the intervention? And then they use result-based monitoring and evaluation. They monitor such that at the end of 3 years or 5 years, that is in line with their strategic plan, they can actually have an impact evaluation by an outside consultant who will actually, whilst they also have the reports, they engage a third party to ensure that they can measure the outcomes and the impact. And these are the reports that CALL presents to education ministers. So for TVET, for instance, I mean, it was over 100. There was an increase of 150% regarding participants in Kenya, Uganda, and Ghana, and Tanzania. So, for instance, this is what part of the TVET support, and in terms of broad capabilities, I mean, works with policymakers, managers, teaching staff, and so forth to support flexible skills development. So this is why I'm saying it can actually be part of community engagement as a university of technology, focusing on competence-based education and training. And then once they've done that, like in Botswana, what they do, there is Madirelo Training Center. They graduate from the informal sector and get either a trade C, trade B, trade A. Once like that, they are absorbed in the formal sector. And you will find even Motor Center, a big company, they actually employ them as motor mechanics because one, they are competent and they are cheaper in terms of labor. Although trade unions are really, really in the forefront complaining. Same applies in, we have CTF. This is a construction where it's a broad government program where they take people in the informal sector, train them, and then trade test them so that they can qualify as plumbers, as builders, as carpenters, and so forth. This does not mean that CALL can also work with professionals in University of universities of technology. For example, Call has been working with the national, is it NAST in Namibia, and the programs, TVET programs at NAMCO. So, for example, this is what you get in Zambia, where in the informal sector, they go into a furniture shop and see what is actually being produced, and then go to their Mlazi township and produce and come and sell in front of the main shop. So Call supports, I mean, all those people. And once NOU participates in Call activities, they become a partner. Then every 3 years, there is a Pan-African forum where all participants are invited. Call monitors its partners and provides awards. These are some of the awards: Award of Excellence for Institutional Achievement, Awards of Excellence for Distance Education Materials, Award of Excellence for E-Learning Experience. For instance, in 2006, Botswana Open University got the Award of Excellence for Institutional Achievement. These go a long way in building the profile of an institution. So what Call asks of you as an institution, Call asks for a dialogue about your priorities. As we speak, Call has priorities for South Africa that are submitted through the Department of Higher Education. And as I indicated, South Africa provides, well, close to $300,000 US. If you translate that to rands, it runs into millions. But yet, there is no entity in South Africa that is taking advantage of that. And it is an opportunity for MUT to actually take advantage of that. So basically, when you write Professor Asher, the CEO, identify your priorities for over 5 years. And as I've indicated, the profiling of your institution as a historically disadvantaged women and girls is in the forefront, should be in the forefront. Thank you. Unfortunately, we have run out of time for the other. Where is he? Probably at this stage, yeah, we can take comments, questions, and so forth. Later we'll do that one. Yeah.
So, colleagues, I think Gutton's office offered us an extremely many thought-provoking ideas, I think, for the development and continued development of Mangosuthu University of Technology. So many great ideas, and I think he also reminds us of the power that education is a public good, even higher education, right? And I think sometimes that's forgotten. So I think open the floor. I see Prof. Mkhale has a question. So we'll open the floor for questions for a little while. And yes, Prof?
I also have a question.
Okay. We have a question as well.
Good morning, colleagues. Dr. Kacha, thank you very much for your presentation. I have to dash off to a meeting of SYNEX, which is starting right now. I believe you'll be on campus tomorrow. Some of the things that you've presented, I'd like us to discuss them tomorrow. Can I get confirmation that you will be on campus tomorrow?
Yes, Sorry. Yes, VC. I may not have heard your first comment or question. I'm only hearing the request for tomorrow to be on campus. I'll be definitely at the campus tomorrow.
Okay, no, that's what I wanted to establish. That's fine. I will talk to Umbali. We'll organize a session. Some of the things that you've presented on, I find them very exciting, and I would like us to take them up tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have to go. I'm chairing a meeting of SYNEX right now, so I have to leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gacha, for a very brilliant presentation, of which Dr. Makasela of the UNISA Council and myself were privileged to have sat down with you on Tuesday. And now the question which I have is what the attitude of the South African government has been all along. I've heard that South Africa pays something like $300,000 per year in dues, and that amounts to about 5 million rands per year. And the mere fact that there is no entity that has taken this thing up, this goodwill from COL, really it makes one wonder, and because it looks like it's a general disease, of South Africa. South Africa pays dues in time and in full in so many international and world bodies, the UN, the Commonwealth itself, the parent body, to IPSA, India, Brazil, South Africa, and also in BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And so many others, but does not extract, any benefits, from such memberships. And then again, the comment, is on the Girls Inspire, that program, which you say that if MUT is interested, it has to portray, the girl child as well as the women approach. And I think that in that, the former director of UN Women, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, I heard you mentioning her here. Yes. She's back in the country, yes. And I think that she could be drawn into this whole thing. She knows about the issues affecting, young girls, issues affecting women, and so on. And again, on the blue economy, I remember at some point I did invite Mangosuthu University of Technology during the time that I was Consul General of South Africa in Los Angeles. And that was long before even this blue economy operation Pakisa was introduced in the State of the Nation address by former President Jacob Zuma in 2012. And I hear people, they're still talking about it almost 10 years down the line, because it was announced at the State of the Nation address in February of 2012. And what I just see people's lips moving up and down, Operation Pakisa, blue economy, and what have you. We have walked this walk with Mangosuthu. I took them to another institution there, the Port of Los Angeles High School, which prepares pupils who are interested into entering into the maritime and marine section. And then we came back, and we still have, they can still, traverse on that road of, because what's the good use of deepening our port and then we import labor from abroad? And I think that Mangosuthu would rather take up this, it's a rare opportunity. And I also read, from the alumni newsletter, Dr. Thandeka Ellenson, she has also raised, this issue. How can Durban, we're having a huge coastline here, and there's no institution that is offering, maritime studies. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rendaba. In terms of the SA government attitude, I think at times we put a lot of burden on the government, and then we don't take up opportunities that the government has created an environment for citizens and institutions and organizations to actually exploit those opportunities. This is why I'm saying MUT should take advantage of what the South African government has actually done in terms of having a partnership with CORE. The South African government has exceptionally supported Commonwealth of learning in an amazing manner. When I was at SADC, they also supported us in an amazing manner. The SADC ODL project that targeted all the SADC member states, all the workshops were actually coordinated from South Africa. We're using Beechwood and Sandton. But unfortunately, our counterparts at our level were not coming on board. That is the only issue. Because, I mean, for instance, when we're having the International Conference on Distance Education, the original communities of practice that transformed from correspondence to distance education, to open and distance education, I can assure you we got a lot of financial support from the South African government so that CORE and ICD as partners were hosted by UNISA at Sun City. It was a big conference in 2015 or so. So that's really a challenge. Ma'am, Dr. Pumzile Mlambo is a very good friend of mine. She's my sister. I've supported Umlambo Foundation. This is why I was saying when I had sponsorship for Commonwealth, from Commonwealth of Learning in collaboration with the Open University of Malaysia, I had colleagues, including the CEO, then Shope, I think, who I registered with the Open University of Malaysia to do a master's in instructional design, and other colleagues. Altogether, there were about 5 South Africans. Yes, the number was small. And the rest were from, I think there was one from University of Pretoria, and the rest, they were from the Department of Higher Education. But otherwise, I mean, in terms of the South African government, they've laid up the landscape. They've actually identified CORE as a key partner, and it's all up to institutions to take up and run with CORE as a partner. Thank you. In terms of the blue economy, I think it will be a big advantage for MUT to actually walk the talk, because what is actually going to happen is by coming on board, MUT will have the advantage of links with, for instance, Seychelles, with the Mauritius, with the Pacific Islands, with the Caribbean islands. So rather than engaging locally with other universities, they will be motivated to engage with the small islands where the blue economy actually matters.
We have another question from the group online. So Dr. Kotelana, go ahead.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you for this very informative presentation. And I was actually excited listening to this because the Faculty of Management Sciences had been exploring a master's degree in business administration. And this program on Masters in Business Administration and Public Administration is such an interesting avenue that is worth exploring. And on behalf of the Dean of the Faculty, Dr. Njangase, who is attending another meeting right now, but he was here earlier, so he delegated the task to me to express the interest of the faculty in pursuing this avenue, more so that you mentioned that it is only offered to one institution per country. So he said it is a worthy avenue to explore. And I think in your presentation, you mentioned a name that you could then give contacts, or you could give us contacts of that name should we be interested in pursuing this. And he said he would prefer those details because this is an avenue that it is worth exploring. Because at this stage, it was just before we were due to, it had been approved internally, but we were just due to submit for PQM clearance with the Higher Department of Education, our master's degree, but it was only going to be focusing on business administration. So this one that is even broader and including public administration, it is a worthwhile program. And more so that there are so many established universities that contributed in this. So, and it would be the only one that is offered in the country. I think this would even take away, I mean, we know politics in South Africa, the bigger universities that are well-resourced and the smaller universities, predominantly Black, that are in the township. So when you consider going for an MBA, which university? MUT would be at the bottom, offering a program of this nature that is backed by those established universities and countries. Then it would be maybe worth abandoning the one that we were going to go for and going for this one that has even these dual streams. So if maybe I could get those details on behalf of the Dean, but thank you so much for this very informative presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Definitely, I'll give you the details for the CEO and President of Commonwealth of Learning. Yes, the two programs, MBA and MPA, are really advantageous for MUT, and for the fact that you will be joining a part of a consortium or an international consortium under CALL. CALL is a big brand. I mean, as soon as you become part of it, you will actually realize that it is a big brand. At the Nigerian Open University, they run two programs, parallel programs. The conventional MBA, which has always been for the Nigerian Open University, and the Commonwealth of Learning MBA. And apparently, the Commonwealth of Learning MBA, executive MBA, is now popular in Nigeria because they like its international flavor, because it helps them to actually migrate to other parts of the world. Similarly, in Asia, is the same. And in Jamaica, for example, when I left CALL, there were quite a number of students who had registered for DBM, Doctor of Business Administration, as a result of the study through this low-cost program with the support of the institution and CALL. So once the program is actually registered and accredited with the Council of Higher Education, it actually enables the participants in the program to actually proceed to do their doctorate in business administration in South Africa and elsewhere. You see, so it's actually cheaper to study a PhD or a doctorate than a first degree and an MBA. So thank you so much. I'll share the information in terms of the address and in terms of the process of actually requesting for the license from call. I have the materials. Definitely tomorrow when I'm at the university, I will actually take you through and the procedures and so forth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are any other questions from the outside or those of you who are online, feel free to ask them now. But if not, we're going to, maybe we could give one more round of applause since we, thank you very much, Godson, for so much so much wonderful and insightful information that you shared with us and so many possibilities. And we'll adjourn for now, and the next session will begin at 11:30. Thanks to everyone who attended and the questions that came up.
Hello.
Definitely pursuing it. Kade ngilonge imharase ecaleni ubheka. Ngithi bheka, you are going to express interest ukuthi sayifuna le program before iziye kwenye indawo. Uthi wasethi yena angikho ngikwi-senate ngathi you are going to do it. What do it? Ngathi okay ngizothi on your behalf.
Wow. Yeah, it's such a wonderful program.
Dr. Obadiah? Dr. Obadiah, can we test your sound?
Yes, hello. Good morning. Can you
Sound is
hear
good.
me?
Thank you.
Fine. How are you?
Yeah. I've clicked this one, but it's still stuck. It's open. Good morning. Good morning to everybody. Vice Chancellor, dear colleagues, and dear distinguished guests. We are in for the second session of today's meeting. And the title of this session is Paving the Way for MUT Students to Participate in International Cultural Immersion Programs. Well, we are originally scheduled to have 3 speakers for this session. Unfortunately, we would be only 2 of the previously assigned speakers. The first one was supposed to be Dr. Godsin Gatcha, who cannot present, but has given us an exhilarating presentation this morning with a lot of information on how MUT can partner with the Commonwealth of Learning and other open distance learning programs, which he is so very ably leading. We will, however, hear from another very outstanding personality in the area of international relations. And that is Dr. Segun Obadiah. We will also hear from the strongman of the chemistry department at MUT, who is Dr. Michael Shapley. But before we go on to the presentations, I would like to make a few comments. Firstly, we have, in the course of the deliberations, articulated several benefits of the internationalization process. And coming close to the end of our deliberations, I must say that we have gone very far in articulating these and in devising methods by which MUT as an institution can capture these and bring them to actuality. Today's focus is on the development of intercultural skills among our students. Well, graduate students have an international experience in terms of foreign language knowledge, intercultural skills, which is our subject for this morning, to be able to integrate in a global setting. This will also strengthen their research skills and their knowledge production skills. And we also have noticed that integration of internationalization in the curriculum will help the students to develop international and intercultural skills without ever having to leave their country. Also, the physical and virtual mobility of students and faculty provides information and knowledge, provides virtual access, and also provides the sharing of policies and practices. On the whole, internationalization provides the most relevant education to students who will be citizens, entrepreneurs, and scientists of tomorrow.
Apologies for the break. Now, the overarching benefits of internationalization, as we have seen from the various presentations we've had since Monday, is the opportunity for students to gain real-world, real-time experiential learning in areas that simply cannot be taught in the classroom. Well, there are so many benefits, as we have mentioned, but there are also challenges in the internationalization process. Fortunately, these challenges are few, but one of them is that of cultural integration. How would students experience culture in other countries? That's the main challenge, apart from other challenges like problems in traveling, problems in financial resources availability. And to help us tackle this challenge of cultural integration, as the first speaker I mentioned, Dr. Segun Obadiah. Dr. Obadiah is the director of the International Relations Office at the University of Venda. That's in Limpopo province. Dr. Obadiah is famed for his incredible work in facilitating linkages, partnerships, and collaborations, including staff and student exchanges for the University of Venda. I understand that Dr. Obadiah has developed and is maintaining a massive database of international staff and students, which expertise we in MUT can surely benefit from. Well, Dr. Obadiah has done so much in the international sphere in terms of students' mobility, and faculty mobility, and other aspects of the internationalization process. And so without much ado, I will hand over to Dr. Obadiah for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Professor Davis. Thank you for this great opportunity. It's a great honor and privilege to be with you, colleagues, at the Mangosuthu University of Technology. It will have been a very interesting opportunity to visit you at this time when you are celebrating your International Week, which is also something that also we're also going to take a lead from, especially at this time, having to combine the process, in a hybrid format. It's quite interesting also to know, very great and interesting discussions that we've had in different areas, and especially today when we'll be talking about how can we capacitate our students, also providing skills opportunity for them, in terms of intercultural competencies, intercultural engagement, and how can they also be able to feature in the global enterprise. So I thank you very much, colleagues. I don't know how many minutes do I have, but I have a presentation which I hope will be shared, from your hand, or do you want me to share it from here? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Dr. Wadia, carry on, we can hear.
Okay, can I share from here, or you want to share what I've already sent to you?
Yes, you can share. You can share.
All right. Thank you
Go
so
ahead,
much.
Please.
So just give me a moment. So I have this presentation. Can you see it from that side?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just give me a moment. Thank you very much for the opportunity once again. My name is Shegun Obadire. I'm the Acting Director of International Relations, and I'll be speaking to you on cultural immersion and advanced technologies. We all know this is quite a very challenging period, and we can see a lot of things that are already taking place, showing to us that there's need for us to really prepare in different types and facets of the engagement that needed to happen, especially focusing on how can we prepare our students to become locally relevant but globally competitive. This particular slide talks to the culture, the evolvement, how the culture has been evolving, over the years. When we look at the values, a lot of things have changed in terms of what we used to know, growing up, with our parents. What are those things that today we were taught? Some of them are changing, but a lot are also happening. To make sure that we are able to entrench those values, in our day-to-day activity. Even today, we want to see students, our children behaving very well, also respecting others, also socializing with each other, not also only focusing on chatting on phones and all that. So we can see a lot of changes that are taking place, and but culture still remains very valuable. If we want to really make sure that our is prepared in such a way that we can face the world as it's supposed to be faced. Issue of language is there. The tradition and ritual that used to happen in the past, a lot have already changed. There are a lot of write-ups, a lot of writings right now, which are being produced, in which you can actually go into archive and be able to retrieve most of these things to be able to know what is it that they do. And you see on the internet various health prescriptions, suggestions and things like that that are also out there, which have already changed the culture. People have to search, use a lot of hours in searching for information in one place, but you can find information everywhere right now. That is the point I'm trying to put across. And we do not have to fight these changes that we are seeing, but to be able to see it as an opportunity. Opportunity to learn, opportunity to be able to improve on ourselves, on our roles, activity as a student, also an opportunity for us to be able to develop ourselves to the level that we can say, we have this opportunity and we are using it positively. There are quite a number of opportunities in terms of experiential learning, that are also bringing positive culture and attitude, making us to be able to interact, know each other. And right now, the use of collaborative online international learning, that is regarded as COIL, is very prominent. We don't have to travel abroad, like Professor Davis mentioned. Before you can experience, you can be engaged in international activities. We call it internationalization at home. But those opportunities provided by COIL, we make using a gadget, a technology, for you to be able to arrange a collaborative classroom, where your student is collaborating with other students in another country, and you are able to interact as if you are in the same environment. This is very interesting. And then you see documentation of cultural things that are very easy nowadays, with videos, video cameras, and you see a lot of them on TikTok. You see a lot of them on YouTube. Hello. So, like I said, the world, in which we have changed, a lot of changing, a lot of changes are taking place. But cultural, competence is very relevant, even to the world in which we are today. And that has to start with curiosity. You want to know more. You want to be able to say what type of language, what is the roots of this language, and this particular people. You want to be able to dispel certain. You want to dispel, certain stereotypes, or prejudice that might be there. When you are able to interact, so it comes with curiosity. When you want to find out about something, then you want to take an action. So when you actually want to be able to know more, you have to immerse yourself in this particular activity of knowing about the culture of other people. And then you have to adapt, because there could be certain challenges. It may be challenging, in fact, to the extent that people will see you and they also label you. But that adaptation will bring to make you to be trusted. That you are also doing things the way they are doing things. You are also working the way they are working, and also asking questions around what they are doing, so that you be able to also be able to learn more. And that will bring interest, and people also will love to show you things, to teach you languages, and will help you even to be able to understand their culture and the way of life in that particular environment. So students, international students particularly, or even our students amongst ourselves, do we know anything about other culture? When an international student comes, on a cross-border collaboration or visit to our institution, are we ready to show that particular student around, and people that come from other culture too, from other ethnic group, are we associating ourselves with them? So those are the questions that will be coming to our mind as a student, and that will expose us. It will help us to be able to know more about it. We know cultural heritage represents one of the most important driver for personal development. For personal development, culture it plays very important role. And that brings also social cohesion and economic growth, because it can develop into various aspects. So when we look at this particular slide, shows what it entails to have intercultural communication competencies, and we look at interaction involvement. We look at empathy. What your love, your social responsibility. What angle are you coming from? And brings about that will be be able to bring motivation, to be able to see that this person can be trusted. And then the training in language, in culture, and all that will come easy, through those kind of interaction. And we have seen also that technology has also involved. A lot. Right now we are about 7 billion people, and you will be surprised to know that more than 5 billion, has mobile phone. Which means those who are in the thick rural area, they also have a mobile phone. You see a fisherman, doing his work in the remote area next to the river, and also making a call to the wife, and children to do certain tasks for him. And right now, the entanglement is really very, very, very serious. That we cannot do without those gadgets again. Because we are now, familiar with them. We cannot, you want to check the weather, you have to take your phone, and then you are already there. You know what weather it is going to be today, or even tomorrow, or even in a month's time. You want to do certain tasks, that traditionally you can do on your own without even using any gadget before you. But you have, because we are being entangled with this particular human, with this kind of technology, we cannot do without them again. And this is continuously changing. And issues are also coming up. A virtual body, you can see, to be able to identify this particular thing is coming, that this is this particular tribe, because of this structure. And that can also be presented on those emoji that we see. We can see a lot of design that will show, certain culture, certain tribes, certain ethnic group, and things like that. So it is possible, with advanced technology. And social media is not really, behind, at the forefront. And when we talk about technology going, maybe the economy in technology has gone down. We are talking about Facebook. We are talking about Google, because they are the major player in that particular sphere. The children born in the 80s, up to now, can be regarded as digital natives. They are familiar with everything. What you who are older, do not know, they will, they will explain to you, without even going to any institution to learn all this. So this is, those technology advancements that we are, are accepting. We have no option. We just have to adapt and make sure that we are not left behind. So technology offers a potential to increase awareness about cultural offerings and create a public engagement with culture. So there's, creation of, continuous creation of awareness, through technology, and to be able, and linking that with culture, what are those cultural, artifacts or things that are there that you can see. You don't have to go to the museum, to be able to learn about, a virtual museum is there. Things you have to travel a long distance to be able to see certain artifacts or certain items. But nowadays it's made possible because of the advent of the technology. And the new technology lets people understand tradition faster, enhance education and enable protection of culture. So I will just briefly talk about what we have been doing at the University of Venda, International Relations Partnership Office. We have a program, called Body Program, whereby we are trying to link, local and international students. They will be grouped together and they work on certain projects. Each group will form, we decide which program they want to do, and at the end of the day, they come up, with a product, and they present. This particular project was actually funded, to the tune of 100,000, and we have been running it for quite some time. And then, the students will go out together. The purpose is for them to be able to interact, have valuable discussion among themselves. When you are working together in a group, definitely we know each other, and the group dynamics also there, making you to be able to see how these people, they do whatever stereotype or prejudice you have against a particular tribe or particular country, that is in your group, you will certainly be able to ask questions about it, and then you'll be enlightened. Maybe it was just a wrong perception, then you'll be able to decipher, from the way the person interacts, and then this program has already, yielded quite a lot, from our report, and because the management, of the university is also supporting us in that particular area. So we make sure that every year, not less than 300 students, first year and final year students, are participating, in our program. So, and the formation is 60 local students to 40 international students, and that has, always helped. And each of the time that we are receiving international visitors, especially students on exchange program, we make sure that we partner them, with local students. If they are going to be 5 or 6 in that group, we make sure that at least 3 are local students. They are our students who can work with them, and then be able to interact with them and be able to gain internationalization at home experience, even at that period. And we have seen a lot of interesting development from this particular activity. Also, Africa Day, it's also an opportunity for us where we also make sure that students, both local and international students, are represented, and people from other ethnic groups, are also working together, to make sure that at least they are. So some of the group activities, are those that are, some of them are engaged in sporting activities, some are in art and culture, some are, the project will be targeting on drama, music, poet, and dance, photography, and so on, and they are supported. At the end of the day, we take them out to a quiet, environment, outside the university, and they, mingle with each other, enjoy, interact more, and at the end of the day, some of them are actually, producing reports, which is, certainly become a publishable document, because of the kind of engagement and questions that we set up for them, at the start of the program. And then we also have internationalization evening, which was run every year. This year, we see a lot of display, a lot of cultural meets, taking place. This is an opportunity for local and international staff and students to celebrate diversity. And this also is open up opportunity for them to be able to learn more, to know themselves more, and to be able to develop that skill. Also, that we take them to prepare them, when they are also going out to other countries, to be sure that they can compete, effectively with people from other culture and other countries. So, in conclusion, culture constructs technology, and technology constructs culture. So there's, both ways. Right now, we see you can create a content, maybe from cultural activities that are taking place, and that will help when you post it or you send it somewhere as a content. People will see it. It will be real to them. And so we cannot divorce culture from technology, the way we are seeing things today. And we need to do more, to embrace culture in the face of changing world. That will be the close of my presentation. I thank you, and if you have opportunity to visit our university, University of Venda is very close to Kruger National Park, and the picture is not a Photoshop. It's real animals and landscape and weather. About 60 kilometers to our university. Thank you very much.
Please, can we give Dr. Obadi a hand? Thank you very much, Dr. Obadi, for that inspirational talk, also very informative. You have covered quite a considerable ground in your topic. Dr. Obadi has given us a brief round of evolution of culture and showed us the cultural wheel in terms of the student immersion in cultural activities. He also mentioned the importance of incorporating internationalization in our curriculum development programs, as this will help students to acquire international as well as intellectual skills even before they actually travel abroad for studies. Dr. Obadia has also mentioned how the cultural background of students affect their adaptation to advanced technology. I think that is also very important for students to be educated on. Then there is the question of social responsibility, of which the University of Venda, through its International Relations Office, nurtures. As the program in nurtures involves group activities, and this is very important, as our speaker has just demonstrated in terms of cultural immersion for student success. Well, I think if the next speaker is here, we shall go on to his presentation and then leave the floor open for questions afterwards. That is what I would suggest. If the second speaker is here, we just go on straight to whom I think is Dr. Shapi. Is it there? I've just been informed, dear colleagues, dear distinguished guests, that the second speaker for this session is not with us. And so I will invite questions and comments on Dr. Obadiah's presentation. Just one person. Yes, I will invite the question.
Thank you. I'd like Dr. Obadiah to take us through briefly the process of setting up an international office at a university. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Obadiah, can you make a comment on that one? Please, can we get the question again? Can we get the question again?
Okay, I was asking if he can briefly touch on how to set up an international office at a university. What would be required and what would be the steps? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. I'm not sure whether Professor Davis, you are still saying something. I cannot hear you. Maybe you are muted. Just to also respond to the question, I think it is in the mandate of the, if you look at the new policy framework released by DELT on internationalization at the higher education institution in South Africa, it is entrenched in that particular document that every higher education should have an international office, which I think also is what is happening at Mangosuthu University of Technology. And with that, there are also conditions, in that particular policy document, which also give a number of mandates of the international office, which focuses on mobility, whether inward or outward mobility, partnerships, in terms of collaborations, exchange programs, and also international research, international research, activities, which will be coordinated centrally by that particular office. So I think to set up an international office, it can be, starting from the management itself, to make sure that they also entrench that in their strategic plan, to say this is what we want to achieve in that particular office, and have a responsible individual with experience, to be the carrier or the one that we organize the office, or be the office holder or the office bearer. And with that appointment of or a vice rector or a deputy vice chancellor, research and internationalization, it will be very easy to be able to map out, how many sections or unit we want to focus on when we are starting, and who are the individuals that will be responsible for each of the activities that will be taking place. So all those has to be in place before the appointments are made. And once the appointments are made, a very central place, a very nice structure with office space, which is conducive, because that is going to be a first point of call to any international partner, either student or staff, from other universities, that are visiting. They will visit that office place, so it must be nice. And once that office is supported with all the infrastructure that is needed, I think the next thing is to be able to put in place, the processes, organogram. How is going to be the flow emanating from the lowest, to the director or to the vice chancellor or deputy vice chancellor that is responsible for that particular portfolio. And once that is in place, and then the policies, and the strategic plan has to be put in place for the office. There must be a strategic plan that is linked, to the strategic plan of the university. So the office, international relations office or international partnership office, must have its own strategic objectives, that will be linked, to that particular strategic plan of the university, and that will be their business plan, that will be following. So I don't want to go too much into the nitty-gritty. I know, that will just be a guide, but that will be the beginning, because the focus is to be able, to profile the university, to be a brand, contributors, we can also explain better on this particular question. Thank you so much.
Statements.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay, let me give Prof a hand.
Mine is not a question, but it's rather a comment. The African Union, about 8 years ago, they celebrated, the 50th anniversary of its founding. It was founded in 1963, and on the we don't hear. Are you okay? Okay, my apologies.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that contribution. Dr. Obadiah, would you like to make a statement on that response to that comment?
Unfortunately, I did not hear anything. I'm really sorry. So I couldn't make any comments because I did not hear anything.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes, but I didn't, when Dr. Mbali was presenting, I couldn't hear anything. So I couldn't follow.
Please, Prof, can you summarize the comments again?
Okay, my commentary was that, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, it's just a comment, which is based on the moves by the African continent, to unite. Having celebrated the 50th anniversary of its existence on the 25th of May 2013, all 54 countries also went to ratify the recently adopted Africa Continent Free Trade Area. Now, I say my observation has been that culture is of importance, as you have pointed out, Dr. Obadire. And now, but there seems to be this animal, this strife, between French-speaking and English-speaking, countries. We're supposed to be one. And then I said, isn't it that the time has come, for Africa to really unite over one language, which is Swahili? Because we often see, even at the African Union itself, that, the Francophone countries, tend to support a Francophone candidate, and the Anglophones also tend to support, and thus bringing in that cultural divide, and whereas we are just one Africa. You would also have seen, I think,